住個角咯。
Hi everyone, I'm Kenny, the coordinator of the Thank You World. Thank you the whole to show we did the human change over here.
Okay, thanks for having us tonight again. I'm Fan. So the original speech, the draft of speech in my hand is what's our future plans. But I'm not gonna say it because actually we don't have one. We just want to have our old time back. But anyway, why are we here today? Well, we were together in these past few months. I would say particularly after the 21st of July. This is a huge change to Hong Kongers. So we want to thank everyone who support us, to support our fight for freedom all over the world, like US, Japan. You can see all of them, but the numbers has been raising. We want to thank them to show our gratitude so they can know what happened in Hong Kong's in this past month. It's very hard. It's very hard time for us. So we will keep our solidarity and the gratitude to the people who support us from all over the world. Their vocal support and their rallies, their marches. Thank you.
So hi everyone. I'm gonna talk about a little bit. I'm gonna give you some ideas on the Land and War flag as well as our future plans on the 29th of September. So as some of you might know, there will be over 40 districts from like 29 countries organizing global rallies against totalitarianism and the communist regime. So we will be lobbying support from all over the world to ask them and help raise the Land and War flag. So as you can see, there are 96 colored squares on the Land and War flag. So this is quoted by also as the Ba Diao Cao, the cartoonist, the Chinese political cartoonist described. The number 96 is actually going against this flag with us. So some of you might already got our newest placard in hand. So we have put together a collage of photos from the global rallies. So you might be spotting some of your countries here. So if you are from Japan and Korea, for example, you can also see some of the prominent activists showcased here in the placard. In the yellow bar below, you can see, you can find out our website as well as the info of the Chinese political cartoonist Ba Diao Cao. So you can definitely give us a shout out. If you can see on this banner, we have put together 24 countries, the flags of 24 countries, as well as in the center, that is the land and war flag. So these 24 countries, no matter is the individuals or the groups or the governors, they have been showcasing support throughout our movement. So for example, we have USA who have been of a great help with passing the Democracy and Human Rights Act. We also have the Baltic states who inspired us in the Hong Kong way. We also have Japan and Taiwan who have been actively organizing rallies. So for Japan, for example, we have over 10 rallies organized already. We also have Korean celebrity initiating the I for Hong Kong campaign, for example. So you can also see the flag of the Philippines on our banner because as far as we know, some of the overseas Filipino workers actually participated in some of our peaceful demonstrations. There's also a Filipino singer-songwriter who composed a song to show solidarity with Hong Kong people. So if you can, just give us a quick show of hands. Do you see your countries here? If you are an exchange student, do you see your country flags here? So for those who don't see your country flags, which countries are you from? If you don't mind to shout it out. The UK? The UK is here. Yeah. So and what else? We can definitely add to the numbers. So we are hoping the banner can be enlarged forever. So we are trying to lobby the help from the free world. So if you are interested in helping out with some of the promotional campaigns, or if you have connections with your local embassies or governors or whoever that might give us a shout out, please don't hesitate to contact us. We'll be over there waiting for you. And if you want to show further support to join us physically, you can also approach our team. So thanks so much. Thank you, world.
Thank you to our representative from Thank You World. So throughout the movement, everyone has their own way to strive for freedom and democracy in Hong Kong. Violent acts are more to be seen in comparison to the past. But even if the tolerance to violence act in Hong Kong has increased, people lack understanding of it. So today we are glad to have a frontline protester to share his personal experience with us. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you all for attending this event. And let me start with one of the crises that we face. So basically Hong Kong now, it is facing a humanitarian crisis where people fighting for freedom, they not only they cannot get the things that they want through peaceful protests, but the police are constantly cracking down on legal protests and posing charge to civilians, normal civilians, which is totally unacceptable. So let me take the 21st of July incident as an example. So on that day, I think you have saw from the video, the tribe members indiscriminated normal citizens in the Yuen Long MTR station. However, on that day, there were actually 2 police officers at that scene. But they did not do anything. They just calmly walked away from the bloodshed and then let the dozens of civilians getting hurt, beaten, injured by these gang members. So I I think it is apparently the police is in cahoots with these gangsters and mobsters. And in these kind of circumstances, when police can no longer protect normal citizens' rights, I think it's time for Hong Kong people and also for people who have consciousness to stand up to fight for their own basic rights, which is the free from fear and their freedom to live. So on that day, some frontliners used fire extinguishers and water pipes, bursting water to deter the tribe members. However, some police actually charged these frontliners and claimed that they are participating in an illegal protest or illegal assembly. But let's think in this way. Without these people protecting normal citizens' rights or protecting their lives, who is going to help them when the police turn a blind eye to these kind of incidents? So in other events, like for example, in Admiralty, on the 5th of August, where the police fired hundreds of tear gas to peaceful protesters, which on that day, the protesters actually got a no rejection letter from the police for their protest. As I said, there were hundreds of tear gas fired to these protesters from rooftop, which is clearly violating the international standards and also violating the internal guidelines. So frontliners rushed to the scene. They called themselves firefighters, and then they helped to put out the tear gas. So let's put it in this way. Imagine without these frontliners, who will help these kind of peaceful protesters when they got attacked by tear gas? No one, right? In other instances, for example, in Wong Tai Shin, Yuen Long, Tsuen Wan, Prince Edward, and Causeway Bay, where these are the usual business districts where you go to shop after your lessons, for multiple instances, they were turned into a battleground. The police, again, fired lots of tear gas, rubber bullets, and other kinds of bullets to protesters. But what they want were only freedom and democracy. Once again, frontliners were the ones that left the scene latest to ensure peaceful protesters' safety. To date, more than 1,500 protesters were charged and arrested. Among the 1,500, I think I got some friends who were also arrested. But as far as I know, they did not participate in any illegal protests. They did not attack the police proactively. What they did were merely defending themselves, defending their freedom, to fight for their freedom from fear. And last night, another 3 CUHK students got arrested in Sha Tin. You may be wondering what they did. They did nothing. They were on streets, like maybe they were sticking posters on land walls. And also 2 underage girls were arrested in Bangkok last night. So clearly, the police they gone rogue, and then nothing can control them now. So in this kind of situations, we need people to spread this humanitarian crisis to the world. We need your help to communicate the brutality of the police, the bloodshed scenes to the world. And I believe if you are able to do so, you can also try to help to seek help from your, say like members of the parliament and also your local political party members to raise awareness to your local community, to your country, to the problem that Hong Kong people are facing. And sometimes, some people blame the frontliners for vandalizing MTR stations. But before blaming these frontliners, I think you all have to think what the MTR did to the normal civilians in Hong Kong. On the 21st of August, as you may know from the video that just showed to you, the MTR closed down the Prince Edward Station for the police to indiscriminately attack civilians on trains. So imagine you're a person on this MTR train. You got attacked for no reason. Are you furious? Are you scared? So some people have the kind of a notion that they should put sanction, they should impose sanction to the MTR because they are obviously cooperating with the police to crack down on people and to attack civilians. When justice no longer exists in the legal system and law enforcers have gone rogue, there is only one option for Hong Kongers, which is to turn yourself into a frontliners, to gear up yourselves, to protect the homeland, and to fight for freedom. Lastly, thank you all for attending this event. 5 demands! 5 demands! 5 demands! 5 demands! 5 demands! Thank you.
Thank you. So next, the purpose of today's assembly is to connect with the international community, especially the international students in HKU. It is a golden opportunity for us to exchange and understand your views. We are glad to have international students who share their views and experience with us. Now may we invite Andrew, Raghav, and Chloe, please.
Hi there. So as you heard, my name's Andrew. I'm a British exchange student here, and I've been asked to kind of give an international student's perspective on kind of what's been going on here. I've only been here a month, and as you can plainly see, there are plenty of people here from whom you'll get far better insight into the movement and so on. But I do have some brief thoughts to share with you, if that's all right. So before arriving in Hong Kong, I have to admit I was a little bit nervous about the prospect of coming to study at HKU. I think that was only natural, really, given how the protests were being presented in the British media, and also having parents as well who were concerned. My home university was considering cancelling my exchange as well over security concerns. But thankfully that didn't happen. I'm here. And I made it out to HKU and to Ritchie Hall as well, who've been fantastic integrating me and the other international students there into the local community. Must also be said that had my exchange been cancelled, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to get to know the movement through some of the people, many of whom now I consider to be my friends. So the way I see it is this: the world is at a crossroads, and if the people of the world don't stand up for what is right, then we're in danger of being led down a path from which we may never return. I see that danger here in Hong Kong. I see it back home in the UK, and I see it as well earlier this week in New York City, where Greta Thunberg has taken the fight for climate action to the UN. So if we, the new generation, don't take up the mantle and we don't fight for what we know to be right, both on a local and a global level, then we're choosing to take that wrong path, and we have nobody to blame but ourselves. Your fight here in Hong Kong is a noble one, certainly, and as an outsider, it's been incredible to see how the movement has conducted itself. Its fluid and adaptable nature should be taken as an example for future campaigns around the world. I've been particularly impressed by how the movement has taken inspiration from history. For example, the 50-kilometer Hong Kong Way, taking inspiration from the Baltic Way of 1989. It's a perfect example of how effective it can be to draw on the experiences of the past to help forge a peaceful pathway into the future. I can assure you I'm by no means the only Brit to support the movement, and there are many back home who look on at the protests with admiration for the bravery and the resilience shown by Hong Kongers in the face of some quite severe adversity, and to achieve what you've already achieved is testament to your determination and endeavour. I wish you the best of luck in exploring all peaceful means for the resolution of the anti-China extradition bill movement. Thank you. Thanks.
Hey everybody, my name is Raghav. I'm a fourth-year exchange student from California. Thanks to the HKUSU for setting this event up for all of us, and to all the speakers that spoke before me to educate us all about what's going on. I'm going to keep this quick. I have two things to say. One, to the Hong Kong people. It's terrible what's happening in this country right now, but it's been truly amazing to see the level of response that has happened here, especially with all the young people and all the students that have taken action, decided to stand up and fight. And I'm meaning the gatherings, the protests, the chanting, people boycotting the MTR, jumping the MTR, the chants that I hear in the halls late at night, almost every night, and even some students who have taken their artistic passions to put artwork up all around the city as a form of protest. Shout out to Midnight Glue on Instagram, midnight_glue. They're doing some amazing stuff too. I just wanted to say it's been amazing to see it, and the world could be inspired by what you guys are doing here. And the second thing is towards the international students. Especially the people who are here for just a temporary amount of time, 6 months to 1 year. I think most of us, when we signed up to come study in Hong Kong, we didn't expect a revolution to happen when we got here. But we're here now, and that puts us in a position where we can make a choice. One, to stay apolitical, relatively, and to not get involved, which is fair for some of us. I think some of us have come from home escaping other things, and getting involved in something else maybe not the best for you right now. But if you decide to make the choice to stand with the people of Hong Kong, it seems like what we're doing right now to get educated and to learn about ways that we can get involved is the right step. And I would say I'm really grateful to the people that have spoke before me for giving us good ways to get involved in a respectful manner, because I think one thing that we should remember is that as international students, as exchange students, we do have a bit of a privilege that in 6 months, in 1 year, no matter what happens, we'll be gone back to our home countries. And so this truly it's important for us to know what we're doing when if we just decide to stand with the people of Hong Kong, to make sure that we're contributing in a productive way and not the opposite. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you once again for setting this event up.
Hi everyone. Just now I'm still debating about one thing. Shall I wear a mask or shall I introduce myself? All of my friends said, you should definitely put on a mask because you have to protect yourself. A few months ago, when you wore a mask, it meant that you're sick, and the mask protected you away from the bacteria. But now, when you're wearing a mask, we're labeled as mobs. A mask is used to protect ourselves from the brutal regime. In the 21st of July, in the Yuen Long attack, over 100 armed gangsters dressed in white indiscriminately attacked civilians on the streets and passengers in the Yuen Long MTR station, including the elderly, children, black-clad protesters, journalists, and lawmakers. At least 45 people were injured in the incident, including a pregnant woman. Despite thousands of reports made to the 999 emergency hotline, the police did not arrive for more than 30 minutes and finally arrived 1 minute after the mob had left the station. There was no arrest was made that night. On the 5th of August, the Fujian gangsters appeared in North Point with rattan and wooden sticks, attacked protesters. This could have turned into another Yunlong attack if not a dozen of protesters come from Causeway Bay to North Point to fight back. In the end, the gangsters retreated. On the 31st of August, the Prince Edward MTR incident, riot police, including the raiders, stormed the Prince Edward subway station in Mongkok. During the ensuing chaos, riot police were flamed by journalists rushing into subway carriages and viciously and indiscriminately assaulting passengers with baton and pepper spray, leaving many passengers cowering and bleeding. The MTR station closed the Prince Edward station, denying access to journalists and first aiders. Until now, almost a month later, the MTR still refused to release the CCTV footage due to privacy issues. What happened inside the station is still unknown. Clearly, the legitimacy of the government is decreasing. The government and the police fail to protect their own citizens. After all these distressing incidents have happened, the government ignored our demands and did nothing when Hong Kong people are continuously suppressed by the riot police. Famous philosopher John Locke mentioned that under this kind of situation, the people could instigate a revolution against the government when it acts against the interests of citizens, to replace the government with one that serves the interests of citizens. The right of revolution thus essentially acts as a safeguard against tyranny. This is the reason why we now still have a series of protests. Hong Kongers have been trying all methods in June to September to persuade the government to fulfill our 5 demands. Some did so peacefully, some bravely, some rationally, some even got injured and arrested. However, the government decided to ignore the public and started treating people as enemies. My friend was arrested last Saturday. Until now, neither his family nor I can locate him. He just vanished. We've called many police stations. No one can tell us his exact location. No one has ever heard from him since then. A few days ago, the police arrested a 10-year-old kid because he was found with a laser pen. On the same day, a video is widely interpreted as capturing officers kicking a man in a yellow shirt. But the police say it was merely a yellow object. We are not armed nor being violent. We are only moving forward, bravely, with a heart of justice, hoping the government will get back on the right track in time. What we got are more than 3,100 tear gas. Some of them are even expired. 590 rubber bullets, 90 beanbag rounds. Over 1,400 people are being arrested. Do these make sense to you? Because for me, this sounds ridiculous. Under this right terror, I have to be honest, I'm terrified, just like most of you. Because for me, however, every time when I see a failure frontiers willing to use the future as gambling, taking the risk of being arrested, when I see the secondary school students forming a series of human chains, when I see the guide our children's future willing to stand with the youngsters, they give me the strength to continue this fight because I know I'm not alone. There are dozens of Hong Kongers share the same belief with me. We protect each other. This is why I have the strength to amass myself and tell today that I'm Chloe, and I'm here today hoping to give strength to all of you. The government has put aside all the principles and procedures, ignored the demands of Hong Kong people, and repeated the lame arguments and lied over and over again. By facing this rude and unreasonable government, we will have no choice but to fight back with justice, conscience, and love of both Hong Kong and Hong Kongers. I sincerely hope you can join us to fight for freedom no matter where you're from. Fight for freedom and stand with Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are very glad to listen to international's views on the movement. Coming up, we will have a forum session which international feel free to come up on stage and have a discussion with us. I'll pass the mic to the moderator.
Justin, take a second.
Okay, so thank you everyone. And today we are honored to have invited a few of our friends who are like maybe foreigners and just come to Hong Kong and to share their feel about the Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement with us. And I will be the moderator of this discussion, and I'm Henry, year 5 student studying in Hong Kong, and I'm a local student born and raised in Hong Kong. And this one is James from the UK. And this one is Steve from the America. And also we have Kainet from Pakistan. So to start off our discussion, I would like to know, since when did you come to Hong Kong? And what do you know about Hong Kong's social issue or political issue before this movement and before these past 3 months?
So I arrived from the UK on the 13th of August, but before that I kind of became aware of the Hong Kong protests from the British media. Specifically the Guardian newspaper, who I think have done a wonderful job in covering the depth and scale of the protests themselves.
I've been in Hong Kong since the middle of August. I've been aware since the beginning. In fact, the first time I came to Hong Kong was right at the end of the umbrella movement by coincidence. So I've kept aware of what's been going on since then. And just, following on Twitter, following the news, all sorts of sources. That's how I keep abreast of what's going on.
For me, I'm actually, so as Henry mentioned that I'm from Pakistan, but I'm actually a local in Hong Kong. I was born and raised in Hong Kong. And I consider myself as a Hong Konger more than as a Pakistani. And when did I encounter about this political movement and all? It was the very first movement, the very first protest that they held. It was a very legal and lawful movement. And yes, so that was the first time I got to know about this protest. And because I have a lot of local friends, and even if there's a chance that I'm not getting to know what's happening, my local friends will definitely make me aware of it, and we have sort of groups and sort of things to discuss on, so that's why I know about the political movement.
Okay, so do you Steve, you have said that you just know about this movement recently and in these past 3 months. So do you know about Hong Kong's social issue in the before this movement and past years, like the umbrella movement and so on? Have you heard of them, or what is your understanding of Hong Kong's social status before?
So I'm a history student, and I did Chinese history at A-level in college. So I kind of had some not just knowledge about Hong Kong's status as a country, but also events such as the Tiananmen Square massacre as well, and efforts at democratic reform on the mainland of China. So I've been kind of aware of the sort of unique status that Hong Kong sort of has as a political entity.
Yeah, I've been aware for a while. I think my first visit was during the umbrella movement, and so I've kind of kept aware of it since then. I've been back a couple of times. And, just talking to people when you visit here, I know people in America who are from Hong Kong, and you talk to them about what's going on and the different perspectives that they have. And at my university at home, I knew plenty of mainland students who would say, oh, Hong Kong, like part of China, Taiwan, part of China. So it definitely made me aware of the kinds of geopolitical and cultural issues that were going on around here. And I just follow these types of things closely because I'm interested in them as well.
And I see that, like maybe the three of you here, you have different degree of understanding into different degree of interest into the political issues in Hong Kong before this movement. However, what brings us together today, just like all of you, is our care about this current movement, the anti-extradition law movement initially, or what is referred to by some Hong Kongers as revolution of our times. That this is the movement that brought us all here today, and that's why I would like to know more about since when do you care about this anti-extradition movement, and what caught your attention this time?
I've been kind of mulling it over for a while. I've never been someone who I'd call politically active. Like back home, I never take part in protests of any kind, but I think after seeing the protests on a TV screen for so long, and then the contrast between watching that on TV and then actually experiencing it in real life, it kind of made me aware of like how much stake that I have, and I think that how we all kind of have a collective responsibility to do something, like even if it may be like ultimately futile, we have to try and make a difference of some kind.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Since when do you care about this movement?
Oh, well, as I've said, I've been following it from the beginning, and yeah, I mean, I care about it because it's a place I visited and a place I liked, and looking at what's been happening here, the way that the police have been acting and the government have been acting, and the overall trend that you can see in Hong Kong towards, slide towards Chinese CCP autocracy is really disturbing to me. So I've been following it since the beginning, and I cared at least since I visited the first time 5 years ago.
For me, same as Steve, because before Umbrella Revolution, because I'm a non-Chinese, so I don't really have to study Chinese history. I mean, we don't have it. So we were only studying general studies and something called liberal studies, where you are actually being aware of what's happening in society and what sort of current issues are happening around. So it was the Umbrella movement when I actually got to know about what's happening around and how much of like involvement the people, Hong Kong people are giving in, and what is freedom of democracy, and what is like what do people want from the government, and how they actually want a response towards the government. Then I actually got to know about like it's actually a pretty serious thing, and me being a Hong Konger, like I also need to do something, because again it's a collective responsibility of you when you live here and when you're planning to live here and you're also willing to contribute to the city, to the community, then you have to take up responsibility. You have to stand with the people who are standing for the city. So that's when I actually stood up, and that's when I actually got to know about the political movements happening in Hong Kong.
So we know, as we all know, that this movement has lasted for over 3 months, and there are indeed many remarkable days and remarkable events throughout these protests. Like we see multiple marches of millions of citizens, and we see, for example, like the occupation of the Legislative Council, and also like a general strike on the August. And many of these remarkable events was never seen before in Hong Kong. And I would like to know a little bit more from you guys. Like, what is the most remarkable moment, the most remarkable day throughout the past 3 months of protest that when we talk about this movement, that day will, or that scenario will pop up? Which is that event?
For me, it's sort of a toss-up between the human chain. I live in Wan Chai, and so like I saw the human chain like connect through the streets as I was walking by. But I think maybe more than that was the aftermath of one of the protests at the airport, which was my first impression not only of the protests, but also Hong Kong in general, when it was completely silent, but there were posters and graffiti everywhere, and it really made an impression on me personally as well. So, yeah.
For me, it's hard to point out one moving moment. I mean, the human chain was a great moment, I agree with that. But it's more the overall impression that I've gotten over the course of several weeks of the spirit in which the people are banding together and the dedication they have and the discipline they have. I mean, if this kind of thing ever happened in America, it would be complete havoc and there would be like thousands of people dead in like an hour. So, yeah, and something that I often notice is that when people are protesting on Hennessy Road and those big roads, and for some reason someone left their car there. I guess they didn't know that was going to happen. The cars are completely not touched at all, like nothing happens. And again, in America, like people would destroy it like instantaneously. And I know it's a small, silly kind of a thing, but I think it speaks to the impression that I have of the way these protests have been organized, and the impression that I've had that people are dedicated to a cause, and the cause of their freedom here. And it's not contrived, and it's not silly at all. Yeah.
I also cannot really choose on one particular thing. So it's just the impression that I have. I've seen like protests from increasing amount of the protest. I've seen that the people are getting more stronger, and chanting together and going for one aim and striving for that thing together is something that's really emotional and really making anyone besides you even more stronger day by day. And for me, these events, even though it's been massacred, for example, July 21st was terrible, but still people did not really back out. They were still going ahead. Maybe the opposition's, their strategy was maybe to just destroy the people who are protesting for it, and then just making them mentally break down or emotionally break down so that they don't really go out again. And maybe because of the fear they don't want to protest again, and maybe because maybe family will put on more pressure on them, you don't have to go out, because definitely parents worry about you. Even my parents were not allowing me to take part in these sort of things. So I would say that their strategies didn't really work on, and then people are still getting stronger and stronger day by day.
We see that just like Steve and also James have said that the human train is one of the most remarkable events that you have seen in the last few months. And this is actually I'm actually curious about how do the international community, or how do the foreigners community in Hong Kong or in every part of the world feel about these movements? Because among Hong Kongers, among ourselves, we often debate over how should we recruit international support. So do you have any thoughts to share with us? What do your foreigners friends think about this, and what will earn their support, and what would you don't like about in Hong Kong's protests?
Well, speaking from a British perspective, a lot of student unions and societies are supportive of the goals of the protests, even though some of them may frown on more violent elements of it. I think broadly speaking, well, it's interesting actually how both political unions in the UK, both left and right, have managed to unite on this issue, especially considering what's happening with Brexit at the moment. We've managed to really come together on this issue, I think, though, to sort of realize that these are people who are fighting for their basic democratic rights, and we need to find a way to support them, even though the UK at the moment is going through a lot of political turmoil itself, which makes it difficult for our government, at least, to try and push its weight internationally and try and figure out concrete ways of pressuring the mainland to sort of back off and respect the rights of Hong Kong as represented in the Basic Law.
Certainly for my friends who pay attention to these issues, I mean, they don't support the Chinese government, I'm sure of that. I think the question is not, people who pay attention to it, whether or not they approve, but getting people to pay attention in the first place. I mean, America has, like England is, I mean, even at this very moment, I mean, every day it just gets crazier and crazier, so how do you get people to pay attention? You have to have a salient moment, I think, that captures people's attention, in the kind of age we live in, where people are watching clips and images and things like that. I think a challenge is really also getting people to understand the scale of the existential threat that's being faced. I mean, I talked to a reporter for a major American newspaper a couple of weeks ago, right after a big protest, after the police had charged down the road at some people, and this reporter was saying, well, in America, the police would do the same thing. And I said, well, but here they're challenging the legitimacy of the government. They don't respect the legitimacy of the government. They're trying to force fascism on them, basically, and they don't like that. And she said, well, that's a separate issue from the police. And I think a lot of people, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, right? But I think a lot of people in America are not really in the frame of mind to understand what it is to question the government that you're living under. It's inconceivable. How can you drive home that message? You have to have a big PR campaign, or you'd have to have a Tiananmen Square kind of moment that that resonates with people. I mean, how do you do that? That's beyond me, but that's what I think.
Do you have any more here?
Actually, like mentioning what you said about Tiananmen Square, though, I'm not sure if it even require that, because another issue that many Western countries have as well is that our trade with China has almost become like an essential part of our economies. Like companies like Huawei, there's been a recent political controversy in England as well about them being part of our 5G network as well. At one point there was going to be a British power station built at Hinkley Point, sponsored by the Chinese as well. The UK is basically, I think, and because of Brexit as well, as we're leaving the European Union and we're trying to forge trade deals with people all across the world, we are sacrificing like our basic democratic values in favor of economic necessity. We would basically rather let like the Hong Kong people suffer, because that would mean we would lose jobs and investment as well. And so I think economics does play like a major part in like how countries treat the Hong Kong protest movement. So.
So we see that actually there has been, as I've said, a lot of debate over how do we recruit international support. And one particular debate that we have is over what people in Hong Kong refer to the more peaceful approach and the so-called more aggressive, or some people say more violent approach. A lot of people are saying that for the international community, they would not be as tolerant to the so-called more aggressive approach. Many people stress that to recruit international support, we have to stick with the so-called peaceful way. And is that your observation, or do you think that such a scenario exists?
For me, I would say not really, because even for my country at this point of time, they're having a very big problem, like Kashmir crisis and all. So every day there are people dying. Every day there's like bloodshed, and it's a terrible situation. It's being like I've seen like on newspapers and like media coverage. There's like violence, there's aggressiveness, there's like just bloodshed, and like military not supporting and like just going against one another, and people just losing their home lives and family and stuff and all. So I would say that people actually like do follow these sort of aggressiveness and these sort of methods to kind of show up, like to let the other opposition party to accept what they want and what's their demands and stuff and all.
I think in the case of the UK, to many, violence as a means of protest is still sort of considered as a kind of taboo subject, like because it's often associated with communism and violent and sort of sectarian violence in a sense as well. A lot of people remember like the troubles in Northern Ireland, and how like protests that like started off as civil rights protests eventually like evolved into campaigns of bombings and massacres as well, and that kind of like, and that's why sort of as a result, at least in England at least, like campaigns of violence against the police are kind of sort of shied away from. But I think as well, like when the media covers protests like this, they kind of tend to focus on the more violent aspects, which tend to be a minority rather than the peaceful majority, because we sadly live in a social media age where people are more drawn to like the kind of literally explosive content, and like that's sort of available to see. That's what I think anyway.
Well, I think what you said is exactly right. That people are drawn to explosive content, and at the end of the day, people see peaceful protests, millions of people marching, hundreds of thousands marching on a regular basis, and what will they say? Oh well, like that's nice. Like they're marching. That's really nice. At the end of the day, where's it going to get you? You're fighting the Communist Party. They don't respond to peace. They don't know what that means. If they could, they would lock up everybody who is participating in these protests and never hear from them ever again. Don't you think that? I think everybody sees that that's what they would like to do. And anybody who in another country who says, well, I don't understand why they have to be violent. I mean, you were never going to get them to pay enough attention anyway. You were never going to get them to pay enough attention. Yeah. But I think that, what you said about Northern Ireland also, basically where they had almost 40 years of civil war and, military occupation and gangs killing people on the streets. I mean, I think that's a real danger here, because what can happen? I mean, the society is snapping in half, and you can see it happening. I mean, this is the prelude to that happening. I don't know what else to say about that.
No, I think that's like a fair point as well. But in the Northern Ireland case, though, like if it does, like without wishing to sound too pessimistic, that solution was solved when both sides, after so many decades of violence, kind of realized the futility of it all and came to the table and like negotiated some kind of settlement that's like brought a degree of peace to the region. So, yeah, I don't really have much else to say on that topic, really. So, unless any of the...
Well, the divisions in Northern Ireland were Catholic and Protestant. Basically.
Yeah, as well. It's tempting to make comparisons as well, but of course, each and every kind of conflict like this is like...
The divisions here are freedom versus no freedom.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one more point, and then I'll pass it back to you, is that, as well, the UK has never really like had to have the worry about like people, about police, the military killing us if we want to protest something, like, protests usually conducted in the people. We've never had a Tiananmen Square massacre, and so we can't really comprehend the possibility that the Chinese might want to like invade and then kill protesters as well. We don't really comprehend that, I think, to a degree that I think people in Hong Kong, live in fear of, I think. So, yes.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge of relating to people in the West. The challenge that's being faced here is inconceivable. You cannot conceive of an experience of moving from freedom to not freedom if it's not even on the radar of your reality.
It's actually great that we hear your point of view from like maybe a UK or US or Hong Kongers that have a Pakistan origin from your perspective. Actually, the four of us here, we come from a different background and we all have a little bit different identities. So a little bit thing that I would like to know more about is, what do you think that as your identity, as your role, you can do for Hong Kong's fight for freedom? How can you utilize your relatively special identity to help with the pro-democracy movement that we are having right now?
I think that as international students who come from, democratic countries, like, we do have the ability to like contact our government representatives. I actually contacted mine not so long ago. I didn't really get an ideal response. There was a lot of like, spin about like, yes, we, respect the basic law. It's an important government document, but of course, actions speak louder than words. And, but I think as well, like, I come from Southampton University. There's a very strong community of Chinese students there as well. And I think like, fostering ties with local Chinese communities at home and like would get you like a better image of what's happening abroad. And then you can like unify and then like think of like a united political response. So that's what I think.
Well, I think, as someone coming from abroad, the best thing I can do is observe and take video and, bring back home what I see, which is exactly what I'm trying to do.
So for me, we have small ethnic groups in Hong Kong. So we have our own concern groups. So we just share information on that. We just comment on that, share our opinions, send each other our feedbacks. And because like there are a lot of people who are not aware of this, so our first objective is to actually kind of make them aware of it and to actually let them know what's happening around and what they can do. And I think it's very important for us to be aware, because like you living in a community, and you really have a responsibility to actually read the newspaper, to know what's happening, because if you don't know, then I feel like it's not really a good thing. Yeah.
So, well, as time is running short, thank you for joining us with this discussion. But before we end this, I would like to have a final question for you all. It is that what would be your final message in one sentence to all of the people in Hong Kong, be it like foreigners or international students or Hong Kong people that are born and raised here? What would be your final message to them?
Well, I won't say it in Cantonese because I sadly don't know a single word of it, and I don't want to insult the students here, but I guess 5 demands and not one less.
I've talked to a lot of people who say they feel like it's their last chance and so that they have nothing to lose, and so I guess I'd say if you feel like it's your last chance, then it probably is, and so you should keep fighting like it's your last chance.
I would say that you don't have to fear. You have people behind you supporting, and I would say 香港人加油!
So thank you for joining us with this discussion.
Thank you very much. Next, we are actually very glad to listen to the international students' view on the movement. Coming up, we'll have an open to the floor session. So any international or local students who want to, feel free to come up on the stage and share with us. Is there anyone who wants to come up and like have a sharing? Oh, sure. How to introduce you? What's your name? What's your name?
Jasper.
Okay, this is Jasper.
Hey guys. My name is Jasper. I'm from Norway. Obviously, I'm here because I'm very impressed, I guess, and fascinated by what you guys are doing. Because you really turned this into it's not just a youth demonstration anymore. You're seeing everyone taking to the streets. And coming from Norway, which is, a very peaceful country, we don't really protest that much. At all for anything. If you see a protest in Norway, it's generally Palestinians that are angry at what's going on in Israel, but never Norwegians angry at anything. So for me, I'm very impressed. And I wanted to come up because of one of the questions they were asking in the forum was what moment in the protest was what I would remember the most. And I just wanted to say, for my part, that when I saw you guys sing the national anthem in the mall, was just beautiful. And I think besides protesting, I think what's very important from now on and out is that you somehow create a national identity, that you kind of unify, not just with protests, but with a national anthem, with a common language. You got to keep, Cantonese strong in Hong Kong. There's so many things that go into forming the national identity, and I think that's an aspect that you need to continue to cultivate further in order to not just make the protest futile, but actually, make yourself, how should I say, special, and not, let Chinese values, how should I say, run over your Hong Kong values. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Good luck, and I will keep rooting. Yeah.
Thank you, Jasper. Is there any other students who would like to share with us? Oh, yeah, sure, please. This is Rob Food, okay?
Hello, everyone. Oh, just want to make some clarification. That is not a national anthem, okay? This movement is not about Hong Kong independence. It's about Hong Kong keep itself as a non-sovereign entity which have the Western culture, the Western style of democracy, freedom, and liberty, but we're still within China, so it's not an independence movement, okay? Yes, you can say that. Yeah, you can say that, but it actually is like a big landmine that the Chinese government is keep fighting us towards it. So we can say that the glory to Hong Kong is a kind of like it's an anthem, but whether it's a national anthem or not, I think it's yours to decide. Yeah. So thank you. Thanks. That's all of my sharing. And 香港人加油!
Thank you, Redfield. Is there any more international students or local students who would like to share with us?
So thank you for coming, especially for the international students. I appreciate you are willing to spend your time over here to understand what is happening over in Hong Kong. So as a local student, I witnessed the entire movement. So what makes me think most is that how can we connect ourselves, or how can we connect all the people around? Is that we all have the same common language, is that we all desire for justice. What it means is that if we want to really to connect all the others and gain support from it, not from all the world, we need to together to fight for the justice and voice out all the injustice. That's our common language. For me, in Hong Kong, maybe I'm not concerned with injustice in the Middle East or North Korea or other countries. I just concerned about myself. But if I want to gain other support from international level, in order to get them support, I have to be aware of all the injustice around the world. Otherwise, I'm just an hypocrite. So I think let's not be indifferent to any kind of injustice, not only in where you stay, but all around the world, everywhere. Start from very beginning, from just your neighbors, and then extend it to your city, to your country, and ultimately to all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other students who would like to share with us? Yeah, sure. What's your name? Viso.
So let's see, I think quite a lot of things have already been said. Obviously, it is a very complex issue going on. I've been here about a month now. I've come from Holland. Before this, I was in India, where you have a lot of nationalism and social unrest as well. So I've seen quite a bit of violent demonstrations. The most important thing that I think I would just like to add to everything that has been said is to not give in to fear as the most important thing. You have a lot of violent things shown on the media, different allegations thrown around on both sides, but the tool of any kind of oppressive authoritarian power is fear. Fear is what keeps people doing nothing, and it can be much more effective in quelling dissent than anything else. And that's one of the reasons why I have been so impressed here, with so many millions and millions of people coming in the streets, not just sitting home and doing nothing. Even if the actions, some of the actions that have been done are not correct or moral, although again you could go into discussions on what would exactly be correct or moral in these circumstances, and if you are faced with violence, what the best way to respond is. Many long, difficult discussions can be had about this. But still, the most important thing is not to give in to fear. I think I would just end with one quote from a science fiction author called Robert Heinlein, who said, "You cannot conquer a free man. The most that you can do is kill him."
Thank you very much. Is there any more volunteers? Okay, sure. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello. So really, I would like to say thank you to all my friends from around the world for coming here tonight. You know, as a local students coming here to this assembly today, and I only see a lot of people from around the world, and also people from our land as well, Hong Kong. But at the same time, there are a lot of people in Hong Kong who still choose to turn a blind eye to this situation, thinking that it's not our business. Who am I to hear? But now we see a lot of people supporting us. I would really want to say thank you to all of you. Can everyone give applause to them? I know, yeah, it sounds cliche. But then what I want to say is, you may think yourself as an outsider, but the fact is you're not. And I would like to share something that I've seen in RTHK. That is a documentary. And in the documentary, they interviewed a lady who has a very thick Mandarin accent. To be very honest, I wasn't expecting anything until she said, "香港加油, add oil Hong Kong." At that time, I realized that even there, no matter the boundaries, no matter the language, no matter where you're from, if you have the same belief as we do, and you're a Hong Kongers, and we hope, and even though you may look different, you may speak different languages, but if you still believe in democracy, if you support what we are fighting for, then you are part of us. You are Hong Kongers. And what I want to say is, you may still think, oh, there's very little that I can do, but what I want to say is, there are a lot of things you can do. From the very minor step that you post on an Instagram story, maybe you sign petitions, maybe you, let's say you joined one of the assemblies in Central later, that is a huge step already for you. And I would really encourage you to take a step forward and to help us and to help Hong Kong get over this very hard time. And I know this is event for international students, but on behalf of myself, I want to say something to our local friends as well. I know 3 months is really tough. I know some of you want to give up, and you start from, on the online forum, you start to see less and less posts about the protests, and you start to see less and less people joining the assembly, the protest. What I want to say is, don't give up. The road is very long. The Rome isn't built in one day. There's a long way for us to fight for, and just don't give up. All right? Stand with Hong Kong. Oh, what's the next one? Five demands. Fight for Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing. Is there any more students that want to share with us? Okay, so again, we want to thank you all for coming to today's assembly. We wish that the assembly today will let students know more about the movement and the rationale behind it. For years, Hong Kongers have been striving for democracy, freedom, and human rights. And international support is actually very crucial for this movement. We hope that international students can spread the news to their home country and stand alongside with Hong Kongers. So feel free to talk to or ask any local students about the movement. And again, we pay our deepest gratitude to you all for supporting Hong Kongers. This is the end of today's assembly. Stand Hong Kong! Fight demands!
Why
so much for your support today. And this is the end of today's assembly.